Welcome, my friends, to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny, and today we have a very special episode. I'm calling these the Phoenix episodes because I've already told you that Danny B. Phoenix is my pen name for all my creative endeavors, from writing stories to poems to music. So this day, and hopefully every Wednesday, is going to be dedicated to my Phoenix side. And today I have something very special prepared for you. Today we have a story, we have music, we have songs, we have everything in the story of Heathcliff. And by the way, talking about the music and songs, I have just released Heathcliff album and I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of the episode. So if you would like to listen to the entire album, you can do that. But now, before we start the story, let me tell you a little bit about what to expect. In this compelling episode, we will delve into the tumultuous world of Wuthering Heights through the eyes of one of literature's most enigmatic characters, Heathcliff. Far from the traditional love story, this retelling uncovers the raw, unfiltered emotions that drove Heathcliff's every action, from his intense and all-consuming love for Catherine to the dark path of revenge that ultimately consumed him. Journey with me as we explore Heathcliff's origins as an orphan taken in by the Earnshaws, his deepening bond with Catherine, and the betrayal that shattered his heart and set him on a course of destruction. Experience his return to Wuthering Heights not as a broken man, but as a force of nature determined to reclaim what was lost, no matter the cost. This episode is not just a retelling. It's an emotional deep dive into the mind of a man whose love defied all reason and morality, transforming into something far darker. We explore the haunting presence of Catherine even after her death, the obsession that drove Heathcliff to madness, and his final tragic realization that in seeking to possess her, he had lost himself. Whether you're a longtime fan of Wuthering Heights or experiencing this story for the first time, this episode offers a fresh perspective that will leave you questioning the very nature of love, obsession, and what it means to be truly human. Join me as we walk the windswept moors alongside Heathcliff, where love and hate are intertwined, and every shadow hides a story waiting to be told. Enjoy. You've heard the tales, no doubt, the ones that paint me as a villain, a brute, the very embodiment of darkness itself. They whisper my name in hushed tones as if speaking it might summon the devil. But I am no mere monster, nor am I a hero in some sweet love story. What you are about to hear is something far more raw, more honest, a tale of love that was never gentle, never tender, but fierce and consuming like the moors themselves. If you've come here seeking romance, turn back now. The love between Catherine and me was not the kind that inspires poets and warms the heart. It was a love born of the wild, untamed, and unforgiving, a fire that could warm you one moment and leave you scorched and broken the next. It was a love that demanded everything and gave nothing in return but pain and longing. You may think you know our story, but I promise you, you do not. You do not know what it is to love someone so deeply that it becomes a part of you, so deeply that when they are gone, you are left hollow, a shell of the person you once were. You do not know what it is to be driven to the edge of madness by that love, to do things you never thought yourself capable of, all in the name of reclaiming what was lost. This is not a tale of redemption, nor is it one of happy endings. It is a story of obsession, of a passion so intense it could only end in ruin. It is the story of a man who lost everything, his love, his soul, his very humanity, all for the sake of a bond that could never be severed, not by time, not by death. So if you dare to follow me, know that there will be no comfort here, no easy answers or soothing words. You will walk with me through the shadows of Wuthering Heights, where love and hate are so intertwined they are impossible to separate. You will see me at my best and at my worst, and you may find yourself questioning what love truly means. But this, my dear reader, is the truth of our story, my story. It is not pretty, it is not kind, but it is real. And perhaps, by the end, you will understand that love is not always a force for good. Sometimes it is a storm that destroys everything in its path, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. Welcome to Wuthering Heights through my eyes. If you're ready, we'll begin. But be warned, this is no ordinary love story. I was a child of shadows, a nameless specter in the streets of Liverpool, where the alleys whispered cruel secrets and the skies bore down with a weight that made breathing an effort. I knew not where I came from, nor did I care. Survival was my only companion, and hunger my closest friend. I was a wild thing, untamed and unwanted. Until that fateful day when Mr. Earnshaw's hand reached down and plucked me from the darkness. Wuthering Heights, what a strange name for a place that felt more like a storm than a home. It was not the stone walls or the creaking floors that unsettled me, but the eyes that bore into me with suspicion and disdain. Hindley, the eldest, looked at me as though I were a disease, something to be cured or cast away. But I had faced harsher glares before, and his contempt was a flame I would learn to endure. And then there was Catherine. Oh, Catherine, how quickly she became the axis around which my world spun. In her, I found something I had never known before: recognition, as if she saw the wildness in me and embraced it rather than feared it. She was fire to my shadow, a fierce, untamed spirit that matched my own. We were two halves of the same broken thing, and together we were whole. Yet for all the warmth she brought, there was a coldness in the heights that seeped into my bones. Hindley's cruelty was relentless, each act of malice a reminder that I did not belong, that I was an outsider in this house of ghosts. But I did not break. I could not. For Catherine, I would endure anything. The lash of Hindley's whip, the sting of his words, they were nothing compared to the fear of losing the only person who had ever seen me. In those early days, I learned to mask my pain, to wear it like a second skin. But at night, when the world was quiet, I would lie awake and feel the weight of it all. The loneliness, the longing, the desperate hope that one day I might find a place where I truly belonged. Wuthering Heights was not that place, but it was the closest I had ever come. And so I stayed, clinging to the fragments of affection Catherine offered, holding onto the fragile bond we shared. She was my anchor in the storm, the light that kept me from being swallowed by the darkness. For her, I would fight, suffer, and endure. For her, I would survive. But even then, in those early days, I knew that love and hate were two sides of the same coin, and that my heart, like the moors that surrounded the heights, was a wild and unpredictable thing. It would take time for me to understand the full depth of my feelings, to realize that the love I felt for Catherine was not the gentle, tender thing that others spoke of, but something darker, more consuming, a fire that could warm or destroy, depending on the winds that fanned it. For now, though, I was a child still. A child with no name, no past, and no future, save for the one I would carve out with my own hands. And in Catherine, I had found the chisel and the stone. Together, we would shape the world or break it. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, and in that time the bond between Catherine and me grew stronger, as unyielding as the ancient stones of Wuthering Heights. We were wild creatures, unbound by the conventions of the world beyond the moors. The wind that howled across the desolate landscape seemed to echo our spirits, free and untamed. Catherine was not just a companion, she was my reflection, the other half of my soul. Together we roamed the moors, our laughter carried by the wind, our secrets hidden among the heather. In her company, I found a peace that eluded me in the walls of Wuthering Heights. With Catherine, I was not Heathcliff, the foundling, the outsider. I was simply Heathcliff, her equal, her other half. Yet even in those moments of pure, unbridled freedom, there was a tension beneath the surface, a darkness that neither of us dared to acknowledge. Catherine's wildness matched my own, but there was a part of her that longed for more than the moors could offer, a part that yearned for the gentility and refinement that Wuthering Heights could never provide. I saw it in the way her eyes lingered on Thrushcross Grange, in the way she spoke of the Lintons with a mix of fascination and disdain. There was a restlessness in her, a desire for something beyond the wild, harsh beauty of our world. And I, with all my love, with all my fierce devotion, could not give her what she craved. But in those days we were still children, and the future was a distant shadow on the horizon. We lived in the present, in the shared moments of joy and adventure, in the stolen hours when the world was ours alone. I clung to those moments, desperate to hold on to the Catherine I knew, the Catherine who was as wild, as untamed as the moors themselves. We were inseparable, two halves of a whole, and yet, even then, I knew that our bond was fragile. It was a thread stretched taut between us, and any strain could snap it in an instant. But I ignored the warning signs, blinded by the intensity of my feelings, by the sheer force of my need for her. For Catherine was not just a person to me. She was my world, my everything. Without her, I was nothing, a shadow without substance. And so I poured all my love, all my passion into our bond, believing that it would be enough, that it would keep us together no matter what came our way. But love, I would soon learn, is a double-edged sword. It can bind two souls together, but it can also drive them apart, can transform into something darker, something twisted. And the love I felt for Catherine was not the gentle, tender thing the others spoke of. It was fierce, consuming, a fire that burned so brightly it threatened to consume us both. For now, though, in those halcyon days, we were children, and our love was pure, untarnished by the world's expectations and demands. We were free, and in that freedom we found joy, solace, and an unspoken understanding that we were two sides of the same coin, destined to be together no matter what the future held. But deep down I knew that our time was fleeting, that the world beyond the moors was calling to Catherine, drawing her away from me inch by inch, and I, with all my love, with all my passion, could do nothing to stop it. Still I held on, desperate to keep her close, to keep our bond intact. For without Catherine, I was lost. Without her, I was nothing. The day Catherine chose Edgar Linton was the day the world shifted beneath my feet. It was as if the moors themselves had cracked open, revealing the chasm that had always lain between us, one that I had stubbornly ignored, believing that our bond was unbreakable. But love, I learned, can be a cruel illusion, and the dream I had so carefully nurtured shattered with a single decision. Catherine, my Catherine, the wild spirit who had once danced with me in the heather, had turned her gaze toward Thrushcross Grange, drawn to its light like a moth to a flame. In Edgar, she saw something I could never be: refinement, security, the promise of a life free from the harshness of Wuthering Heights. And in choosing him, she severed the thread that bound us together, leaving me adrift in a sea of anger and despair. It was not just a betrayal. It was an erasure. With her decision, Catherine had wiped away the years we had spent together, the moments of joy and sorrow that had defined our bond. She had chosen a life that did not include me, a future where I was nothing more than a shadow in the background. The realization cut deeper than any physical wound, and I felt the pain of it in every fiber of my being. I remember the moment she told me, her voice trembling with something like regret, but it was not enough to soothe the fury that raged within me. "I love you, Heathcliff," she said, as if those words could somehow bridge the gap that had opened between us. But they were empty, meaningless, a cruel reminder of what we had lost. "Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same," she said of Edgar, and it was as if she had driven a knife into my heart. How could she say such a thing? How could she not see that it was I, not Edgar, who was her true match, her other half? But the truth was clear. Catherine had outgrown me, outgrown the wildness we had once shared, and in doing so, she had left me behind. The house that had once felt like a prison now became a tomb, and I could no longer bear to stay. Every corner of Wuthering Heights echoed with memories of her, memories that now felt like a mockery of the love I had believed in so fiercely. I could not stay and watch her become Lady Linton, watch her slip further and further away from me until she was nothing more than a distant memory, a ghost haunting the moors. And so I left. I walked away from Wuthering Heights, from the only home I had ever known, driven by a pain so deep it consumed me. I did not know where I was going, only that I needed to escape, to find a place where I could forget, where I could rebuild myself from the ashes of what had once been. But even as I left, I knew that the bond between Catherine and me was not truly broken. It could not be, for it was forged in the fires of something far stronger than love, something darker, something enduring. And though I left her behind, a part of me remained, tied to her in ways I could not yet understand. I would return, of that I was certain. I would return, and when I did, I would not be the same Heathcliff who had left Wuthering Heights, broken and lost. I would be something else, something stronger, something that would make Catherine regret the choice she had made. For if I could not have her love, then I would have her pain. And so, with the moors stretching out before me like a vast, uncharted wilderness, I walked into the night, leaving behind the boy I had once been. In his place, something new was born, a man who would stop at nothing to reclaim what was rightfully his, even if it meant burning the world to the ground.
I hate that I love you, but I smile every time your eyes meet mine, and I lose all my pride. I hate that I need you, I know how it ends. We'll never say forever, your silence offends. I hate that I love you, your breath close to mine. There's truth in this hatred, yet I feel so divine. I hate that I want you, but still here we stand, caught in this dance with no real command. I hate that we're restless, never quite free. But deep in this madness, you're part of me. I hate that I love you, your breath close to mine. There's truth in this hatred, yet I feel so divine. I hate that I want you, but still here we stand, caught in this dance with no real command. I love that I hate you. The story won't die till the light of the morning fades from the sky. I love and I hate you, a bittersweet game, but nothing will ever quite feel the same. I hate that I love you, your breath close to mine. There's truth in this hatred, yet I feel so divine. I hate that I want you, but still here we stand, caught in this dance with no real command. I hate you, I love you, a love-hate parade. I hate that I love you, but I won't be afraid. I love you, I love you, I love you.
Years passed, but the fire within me never dimmed. The boy who had left Wuthering Heights was dead, buried beneath layers of hatred, bitterness, and a resolve as cold and unyielding as the moors themselves. In his place stood a man forged by pain, a man who had learned that love, when betrayed, could fester into something far more potent, a thirst for revenge. When I returned to Wuthering Heights, it was not with the heart of a lover, but with the mind of a strategist. Every step I took was calculated. Every word spoken was laced with purpose. The world that had once rejected me would now bend to my will. And at the center of it all, like the eye of a storm, was Catherine. I found Wuthering Heights much as I had left it, yet everything had changed. The house bore the weight of decay, as it had absorbed the bitterness that had seeped into its very walls. Hindley, who had once tormented me with such glee, was now a broken man, consumed by his own vices. How easy it was to manipulate him, to turn his weaknesses into my advantages. The estate, once the source of my misery, now fell under my control with hardly a struggle. It was the first piece of my revenge, the first brick in the fortress I would build around myself. And then there was Isabella. Poor, foolish Isabella, she was an easy pawn, drawn to me like a moth to a flame, blinded by a romantic notion of love that had no place in my world. I played the role she wanted, the brooding, mysterious lover, knowing all the while that her infatuation was nothing more than a tool. Marrying her was a means to an end, a way to strike at Edgar, to poison the life Catherine had chosen over me. But there was no satisfaction in it. Only a hollow sense of victory that did little to quench my rage within. Catherine, my thoughts always returned to her, to the love that had once consumed me and the hatred that had taken its place. When I saw her again, after so many years, I felt the old wounds reopen, raw and bleeding. She was as beautiful as ever, but there was a fragility to her now, a brittleness that spoke of years spent in a gilded cage. She had everything she had ever wanted, yet I could see the emptiness in her eyes, the longing for something she could never have, me, as I once was. But that Heathcliff was gone. In his place stood a man who would take what was his, not through love, but through domination. I wanted Catherine to feel what I had left, to be torn apart by the very emotion she had awakened in me. I wanted her to suffer, to regret every choice that had led her away from me. And yet, beneath it all, I still wanted her. The contradiction was a blade that cut deep, but I welcomed the pain. It reminded me that I was alive, that I still had something to fight for. My return was a shock to everyone, but it was Catherine's reaction that I craved most. She looked at me with a mix of longing and fear, as if she could sense the darkness that had taken root within me. And in that moment, I knew that my revenge would not be swift. It would be a slow, methodical unraveling of everything she held dear. I would destroy Edgar, take control of Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, and in the end, I would leave Catherine with nothing but me. For in my twisted heart, I believed that only when she had lost everything, only when she was as broken as I had been, would she finally understand. Only then would she see that we were meant to be together. Not in the idyllic love of our youth, but in the dark, consuming passion that now defined us both. And so I began my campaign, a slow, deliberate dismantling of the lives that had flourished in my absence. Hindley, Edgar, Isabella, they were all pawns in a game whose outcome was already decided. But Catherine, she was the queen, and the game would not end until she was mine, utterly and completely, even if it meant destroying us both in the process. The Moors whispered their approval as I moved through the night, a shadow among shadows, driven by a single unrelenting purpose. Revenge was no longer just a desire. It was my reason for being, the force that propelled me forward. And I would not stop until I had reclaimed what was mine, until the world bore the scars of my return as deeply as I did.
I see you standing there, the years have changed us both, but the flame that once burned bright, I never let it go. I wear these chains of promise, bound by words I swore, but my heart is not my own, it's knocking on your door. I wish I could reach for you, but these hands are tied in truth. I can't breathe, I can't break free. The love I feel is killing me. I see you now, but I must turn away. In the silent fire I'll stay. Every look, every touch makes me remember far too much, but I'm locked inside this heart of stone, loving you from afar, alone. The years have drawn a line between what's right and what is real. I fight against this longing, but it's a war I cannot heal. I've tried to bury memories, but they rise up like the tide. Each wave crashes harder, pulling me to where you hide. If only time could reverse, but my vow has become my curse. I can't breathe, I can't break free. The love I feel is killing me. I see you now, but I must turn away. In the silent fire I'll stay. Every look, every touch makes me remember far too much, but I'm locked inside this heart of stone, loving you from afar, alone. I I can't breathe, I can't break free. The love I feel is killing me. I see you now, but I must turn away. In the silent fire I'll stay. Every look, every touch makes me remember far too much. But I'm locked inside this heart of stone, loving you from afar, alone. I'll carry this secret, this love untold, in my heart forever bold. I can't breathe, I can't break free. The love I feel is killing me. I see you now, but I must turn away. In the silent fire I'll stay. Every look, every touch makes me remember far too much. But I'm locked inside this heart of stone, loving you from afar, alone.
As my grip tightened around Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, the world began to bend to my will, just as I had planned. But power, like love, is a fickle thing. And what I had gained through manipulation and cruelty came with a cost I was willing to pay, though it left me more hollow than I could have ever imagined. Hindley was the first to fall, his life unraveling in a haze of alcohol and despair. The man who had once been my tormentor was now nothing more than a shell consumed by his own vices and the ruin I had orchestrated. I watched him sink deeper into his misery, and though a part of me relished his suffering, another part felt nothing at all. He had been an obstacle, a means to an end, and now that he was defeated, I felt no satisfaction, only an emptiness that gnawed at me in the quiet hours of the night. Isabella, too, was a casualty in my war. Her love for me, or what she believed to be love, had turned to ash the moment she realized the truth, that he was nothing more than a pawn in a game she did not understand. Her eyes, once filled with infatuation, now held only fear and loathing, and she fled from me as if I were the devil himself. I let her go, knowing that her spirit was broken, that she would never be the same. But even this victory was hollow, for in destroying her, I had destroyed something within myself. And then there was Edgar, the man who had taken Catherine from me, who had offered her the life I could never provide. He was my greatest enemy, and yet, as I watched him suffer the slow decline of his beloved wife, I felt no triumph. His pain mirrored my own, and in his grief, I saw a reflection of the torment that had driven me to this point. But I was not content to let him suffer in silence. I wanted him to see the destruction I had wrought, to understand that his loss was of his own making. Catherine's health deteriorated as the weight of our entangled lives pressed down upon her. She was the epicenter of the storm I had unleashed, and as she withered before my eyes, I felt a pang of something I could not name. Regret, perhaps, or something darker. Her fire, once so fierce, was now a flickering candle, and the sight of her frailty stirred a turmoil within me that I had long tried to bury. I had set out to destroy those who had wronged me, to reclaim what was mine by any means necessary. But as Wuthering Heights fell deeper into decay, as the lives around me crumbled, I began to wonder if I had truly won, or if I had merely traded one form of suffering for another. The house, once symbol of my hatred and determination, now felt like a tomb, suffocating in its silence. The walls that had witnessed so much pain seemed to close in on me, and I found myself haunted by the memories I could not escape. Catherine's presence lingered in every room, in every breath I took, and though she was still alive, it was as if she were already a ghost, haunting me with the weight of what could have been. I had thought that revenge would bring me peace, that it would fill the void left by Catherine's betrayal, but instead it had only deepened the chasm within me, leaving me more lost and alone than ever. The power I had sought so desperately now felt like a burden, a reminder of all I had sacrificed in its pursuit. And yet, I could not stop. I was too far gone, too consumed by the darkness I had embraced. The path I had chosen was one of no return, and all I could do was see it through to the bitter end, even as it dragged me deeper into the abyss. Wuthering Heights, once a place of torment, was now a monument to my revenge, a testament to the destruction I had wrought. But in the quiet moments, when the wind howled through the cracks in the stone, I wondered if I had not destroyed myself along with it. The love I had once felt for Catherine, the passion that had driven me to such lengths, was now a twisted, hollow thing, a shadow of what it once was. And as I watched her fade, as I saw the light in her eyes dim, I realized that in trying to reclaim her, I had lost the very thing that had made life worth living. Wuthering Heights was mine, but at what cost? The question echoed in my mind unanswered as I stood at the edge of the precipice, staring into the void that had consumed my soul. The day Catherine died, the world as I knew it ceased to exist. It was as if the very air had been stolen from my lungs, leaving me gasping, drowning in a sea of grief so profound it defied description. In that moment, I understood what it meant to truly lose something irreplaceable, something that was a part of your very soul. She lay there, pale and fragile, like a broken doll. And I could scarcely believe that this was the same fierce, wild spirit who had once danced across the moors with me. The fire that had once burned so brightly within her was gone, snuffed out by the weight of the choices we had made, by the inexorable pull of fate that had dragged us both into the darkness. I had watched her decline, helpless to stop it, torn between my love for her and the hatred that had come to define me. But in those final moments, all that remained was the love, raw and unfiltered, a desperate, clawing need to hold on to her, to keep her with me by sheer force of will. But death is a cruel master, and no amount of pleading or rage could bring her back. As she slipped away, I felt something within me shatter, a crack that ran deep into the core of my being. Catherine had been my everything, the reason I fought, the reason I lived. And without her, I was nothing. The world around me blurred, the walls of Wuthering Heights closing in, suffocating me with their silence. Her last breath was a dagger in my heart, a wound that would never heal. In the days that followed, I wandered the halls of Wuthering Heights like a ghost. Her absence a constant presence, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I could feel her, hear her whispering in the wind, see her in the corners of my vision, just out of reach. She was gone, truly gone, and no amount of rage or tears could change that. I raged against the heavens, cursed the very earth for taking her from me. I had lost the one person who understood me, the one person who could match my darkness with her own. In my grief, I lashed out, destroying everything in my path, but it was all in vain. The emptiness remained, a gaping maw that threatened to swallow me whole. I buried her in the earth, but in truth, I buried a part of myself with her. The man who had once been Heathcliff was gone, replaced by something darker, something twisted by grief and loss. The love that had once driven me had turned into something monstrous, a need to possess her even in death. I could not let her go. Even as the earth closed over her, I could feel her with me, haunting me with her absence. I swore to the heavens that she would not escape me, not even in death. I would find a way to be with her, to keep her with me no matter the cost. For in my twisted heart, I believed that we were meant to be together, not in the idyllic love of youth, but in the dark, consuming passion that had come to define us both. The world outside Wuthering Heights no longer mattered. Edgar, Isabella, Hindley, they were nothing to me. Mere shadows in a world that had lost all meaning. All that mattered was Catherine and the promise I had made to her, to myself, that we would be together, even if it meant tearing down the very fabric of reality to make it so. Her death was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter in our twisted tale. A chapter where love and death were inextricably linked, where the boundaries between life and the afterlife blurred. For as long as I drew breath, I would search for her. I would call out to her, and I would not rest until we were united once more. The wind howled through the moors, a mournful wail that echoed my grief, my rage, my undying love. And in the stillness of the night, I could hear her, feel her, as if she were right there beside me, waiting. I was lost, but in that loss, I found a new purpose, a purpose that would drive me to the edge of madness and beyond. Catherine was gone, but she was not gone from me. Not yet. Not ever.
The moon still whisper your name, but the wind feels colder now, a shadow in every flame. Since you've gone, I don't know how. I've walked through storm and fire for the ghost that haunts my mind, but the heart you set ablaze was never yours to leave behind. Every breath feels like a chain bound to the echo of your pain. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. In the silence, hear my strife. In the dark, I lose control. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. What is left in this blackened night if I can't have you whole? The rain falls heavy on your stone, as if the sky is more for me. I scream to the earth alone. Why must love and death agree? The years are long and cruel, but time can't heal the scar. For every dream of you, I lose the light of every star. Every step I take, I fall where your voice no longer calls. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. In the silence, hear my strife. In the dark, I lose control. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. What is left in this blackened night if I can't have you whole? So hold me like the wind. Let your spirit take my hand. If this love is cursed, I'll still begin to chase you across this desolate land. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. In the silence, hear my strife. In the dark, I lose control. I cannot live without my life, I cannot live without my soul. What is left in this blackened night if I can't have you whole? I'll follow you into the grave, for only there I'll be saved.
Catherine's death did not bring the peace I had so desperately craved. Instead, it birthed an obsession that gnawed at my soul, driving me to the brink of madness. I had lost her in life, but I refused to lose her in death. Her presence clung to me like a second skin, a shadow that darkened every thought, every breath. The house, once merely a place of torment, became a living tomb. Wuthering Heights echoed with memories of her, each room a reminder of what I had lost. But it was not just the house that haunted me. It was Catherine herself. I could feel her everywhere. In the wind that howled through the moors, in the whispers that crept through the walls at night. She was there, just out of reach, taunting me with her absence, reminding me that she was not truly gone. I would sit by her grave for hours, sometimes through the night, speaking to the earth as if she could hear me, as if she might rise from the ground and return to me. But the earth was silent, cold, unyielding, and with every passing day, my desperation grew. I had not just lost Catherine. I had lost a part of myself, a part that had been tied to her since we were children. And without that part, I was incomplete, a hollow man driven by nothing but a need to reclaim what had been taken from me. But how could I reclaim something that was no longer of this world? The answer came to me slowly, in the quiet moments when the line between reality and nightmare blurred. If I could not have her in life, then I would find her in death. It was not enough to mourn her, to weep for what might have been. I needed to possess her, to make her mine in the most final and irrevocable way. I began to see her in fleeting glimpses, in the corner of my eye, in the dead of night when the house was silent. Her ghostly figure would appear, a wraith-like vision that filled me with equal parts longing and terror. Was it my mind playing tricks on me? Or was she truly there, caught between this world and the next, unable to move on because of the bond that tied us together? But these were not peaceful hauntings. Catherine's ghost was a reminder of the love that had twisted into something dark, something destructive. I could feel her anger, her sorrow mingling with my own, and together we became trapped in a cycle of torment, unable to let go, unable to move forward. It was then that I realized what must be done. If Catherine could not rest, then neither could I. I would tear down the barriers between us, force the worlds of the living and the dead to collide so that we could be together once more. I began to neglect everything else. Wuthering Heights, the people who still lived there, the very cold world outside. None of it mattered. All that mattered was finding a way to bring Catherine back to me. I even thought of the afterlife not as a place of peace, but as another battleground where our souls would meet, where our love would continue in its twisted, passionate form. I clung to this belief, for it was the only thing that kept me from succumbing completely to the madness that had begun to overtake me. The wind became my companion, howling through the nights as I roamed the moors searching for her, calling out to her, daring her to answer me. I spoke to the spirits, the ancient ones that had roamed these lands long before Wuthering Heights was built, asking for a way to bridge the gap between our worlds. But the spirits, like the earth, remained silent, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my anger, my undying love. It was then that I realized that Catherine was not just a ghost haunting Wuthering Heights. She was a ghost haunting me, a manifestation of all my guilt, my regrets, my unfulfilled desires. The obsession consumed me, driving away any remnants of humanity I had left. I cared for nothing and no one, save for the idea that I could be with Catherine again. I tortured myself with thoughts of what might have been, replaying our time together, cursing the fate that had torn us apart. And yet, for all my rage, for all my desperation, I knew that the true enemy was within me. I was haunted not just by Catherine's ghost, but by the man I had become. A man who had allowed love to twist into something unrecognizable, who had let his pain fester until it poisoned everything around him. But I could not stop. I was trapped in the cycle, bound to Catherine even in death, driven by a need to reclaim what had been lost, even if it meant losing myself completely. Wuthering Heights, once a home, then a prison, had become a mausoleum, a place where the living and the dead existed side by side, where love and hate were indistinguishable, where the past refused to let go. And I, Heathcliff, the boy who had once loved Catherine with all his heart, had become a ghost in my own right, a man haunted by the very thing he had sought to possess. But there was no turning back. I had chosen this path, and I would walk it to the end no matter the cost. For in the end, Catherine and I were bound together, not by the sweet promises of love, but by something far darker, far more enduring. And as I wandered the moors, calling out to the night, I knew that I would find her or die trying, because without her, I was nothing. And if I could not have her in life, then I would find her in the shadows, where love and madness are one and the same. As the years passed, the weight of my obsession grew heavier, dragging me further into the abyss. Wuthering Heights had become a hollow shell, a reflection of the emptiness that consumed me. The people around me were mere shadows, their lives insignificant in the face of the all-encompassing void that had taken hold of my soul. My thoughts were consumed by Catherine, and every waking moment was filled with the torment of her presence. I had long since ceased to care about the world outside, about power or revenge. All that mattered was the thought of being reunited with her, of breaking the chains that bound us to our separate realms. The fire of my anger had burned out, leaving behind only ashes and the cold, bitter determination to end my suffering. The hatred that had once driven me had given way to a deep, unrelenting sorrow that could not be quelled. The days blurred together, each one a repetition of the last. I wandered the moors like a ghost, my body weakened by years of neglect, my mind frayed by the constant presence of Catherine's spirit. She was always there, just out of reach, haunting me with her presence, taunting me with the life we could have had. I spoke to her in the dead of night, pleaded with her to come to me, but the silence that answered me was as cold as the grave. My health began to fail, my strength ebbing away like the tide. I welcomed it, for with each passing day, I knew I was drawing closer to her, closer to the reunion I had longed for. The pain in my chest was a constant reminder that my time in this world was coming to an end. And the thought of it brought me a strange, twisted comfort. Death, the very thing I had once feared, now seemed like a gateway, a door that would lead me back to Catherine. The final days were a blur of feverish dreams and half-remembered conversations. I could feel her with me, her presence stronger than ever before, as if she were waiting for me on the other side. The boundary between life and death had grown thin, and I knew that soon I would cross it, leaving behind the torment of this world. As I lay in my bed, the walls of Wuthering Heights closing in around me, I felt a peace I had not known in years. The rage, the bitterness, the obsession, all of it was fading away, replaced by a sense of inevitability. I was finally letting go, surrendering to the pull of the darkness, knowing that on the other side, Catherine awaited me. In those final moments, I saw her clearly, as if she were standing beside me, her eyes filled with the same wild passion that had drawn me to her so many years ago. She was not the frail, broken woman I had last seen, but the fierce, untamed spirit who had once been my everything. I reached out to her, and for the first time I felt her touch. Not the cold grasp of a ghost, but the warm, familiar embrace of the woman I had loved with all my heart. "Catherine," I whispered, my voice weak but filled with a longing that had never faded. I'm coming. And as the darkness closed in, as the final breath left my body, I knew that I was not alone. She was with me, guiding me through the shadows, leading me to the place where we could finally be together, free from the pain and sorrow that had defined our lives. The world of the living faded away, and in its place, I saw the moors stretching out before me, bathed in the soft light of dawn. There, in the distance, she waited for me, her figure silhouetted against the rising sun. I walked toward her, my steps growing lighter with each passing moment, the weight of the world falling away as I drew closer. She turned to me, her eyes filled with the same fierce love that had bound us together in life, and I knew that I had finally found the peace I had sought for so long. In death, as in life, we were inseparable, two souls entwined by a love that could not be broken. Not by time, not by death, not by the forces of heaven or earth. We had been through hell together, and now at last, we were free. As I took her hand, I felt the last remnants of my old life slip away, leaving only the love that had driven me to the brink of madness and beyond. And in that moment, I knew that I was home. Catherine and I, together at last, forever.
On the edge we stand, hearts in trembling hand, a touch so close, so far, love a fleeting scar. Bitter edge where we fall, love's sweet taste, then the thrall. In joy we rise, but in pain we bleed. Love's bitter edge, we plant the seed. Eyes that seek the truth in the shadow of our youth. A whisper soft, a promise bent, love that's lost but never spent. We walk the line, fine and frail, a dance in shadows, a whisper tell, where love's light fades and shadows grow. On the bitter edge, where secrets flow. Bitter edge, where we fall, love's sweet taste, then the thrall. In joy we rise, but in pain we bleed. Love's bitter edge, we plant the seed. We walk the line, fine and frail, a dance in shadows, a whisper tale, where love's light fades and shadows grow. On the bitter edge, where secrets flow. Bitter edge, where we fall, love's sweet taste, then the thrall. In joy we rise, but in pain we bleed. Love's bitter edge, we plant the seed. In silence we tread, words left unsaid, a fleeting glance, a tear unshed, on love's bitter edge where dreams are led. So here we stand on the brink, where love's edge cuts deep and hearts sink in the shadow of what was, what might have been. Love's bitter edge, sharp and keen.
And so, my friends, we come to the end of this harrowing journey through the eyes of Heathcliff, a man whose love for Catherine was as fierce as it was destructive. What have we learned? Perhaps that love, in its purest form, is not always gentle or kind. It can be wild, untamed, and all-consuming, capable of driving even the strongest among us to the edge of madness. Wuthering Heights, as told by Heathcliff, is not the story of star-crossed lovers finding peace in the afterlife. It is a tale of passion that burns too brightly, of a love that defies reason and morality, and of the lengths one might go to reclaim what was lost, even if it means losing oneself in the process. As we've walked through the crumbling halls of Wuthering Heights, we've seen the world through Heathcliff's eyes, felt his pain, his rage, his undying love for Catherine. We've watched as that love twisted into something dark, something that ultimately consumed him and everything around him. It's a story that forces us to confront the darker sides of our own hearts, to question how far we would go for love, and what we might sacrifice in the name of it. But let's not forget, as we step back from the shadows of Wuthering Heights, that this story is not just about love and loss. It's also a reflection on the human condition, on our capacity for both great love and great destruction, and how our past shapes our present, and on how the choices we make echo through the lives of those around us. Heathcliff's journey was one of tragedy, of obsession that left no room for redemption. But in understanding his story, we can perhaps find a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human emotions, the good, the bad, and the undeniably powerful. As we close this chapter, I hope you've been as captivated by Heathcliff's tale as I have. It's a story that lingers, that stays with you long after the final words have been spoken. And maybe, just maybe, it will lead you to revisit Wuthering Heights with new eyes, to see beyond the surface of the characters and into the dark, tangled depths of their souls. And with that, my friends, I would like to thank you for joining me on this exploration of one of literature's most enigmatic figures. Until next time, remember, love is never simple, and sometimes the stories that haunt us the most are the ones that teach us the greatest lessons. This is your host, Danny, or maybe for today I should say Phoenix. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you next time.